Hey there, everybody, and welcome. Today, I'm going to teach you how to play Tekhenu, Obelisk of the Sun, in solo mode. Now, I have already produced two other videos about Tekhenu. One, a complete, full, hand-holding, slow and steady tutorial that goes in-depth into all the rules of the game and shows you how to play, lots of examples. In addition, I presented a video that is on Board Game Geek and on YouTube that demonstrates a sample two-player playthrough of the game. So today, I'm going to be focusing on solo mode. And as you can see, and if you've not watched my previous two videos, I am using a program that I developed to play the game. It's a prototype program because, as you probably are aware, at least as of the date that I'm creating this video, the game has not yet been officially released, and therefore the images that I have at my disposal aren't very clear. Sometimes they're fuzzy, the tiles don't look great, the cards don't look great, the board's a little blurry, but it's still perfectly functional, and by using this program, you're going to see everything happen close up. There won't be any difficulty whatsoever in following what's happening. I'll give you a step-by-step tutorial, and furthermore, my program is going to ensure that I don't make any mistakes along the way. This is a relatively heavy game, and therefore, when you're playing solo, it does require that you have a very methodical approach. Otherwise, it's very easy to miss a step. You might forget to rotate the obelisk, or you might forget this or that or the other thing. So hopefully, after watching this video today, you'll have a much better idea as to how the solo play works. I am not going to go through the rules of the game today. That is not my objective. If you want to know how to play this game, please watch my previous video that explains in full how you play the game. I'll put a link to that video in the show notes, and I would encourage you to watch that if you don't already know how to play Tekhenu. Most importantly, I really want to keep the length of this video to a minimum because my last two videos ran pretty long. So I'm just going to focus my efforts today on explaining how Botankhamun, the solo bot, works, and I am not going to focus at all on my own game. So I'm going to say right up front that I anticipate that the bot is going to resoundingly defeat me and that my score is going to be probably mediocre at best. In the future, I will publish another video of me playing solo, and probably by that time, my program will be cleaned up and will look a lot better. And in that video, I won't have to explain anything, and I can just focus on playing well and see how I perform against the bot. I haven't had a lot of experience playing this game, but I have heard anecdotally that Botankhamun is an extremely challenging opponent, even when you're playing in easy mode, which is what I'm going to be demonstrating today, although I will talk about the changes made to the game if you decide to play in medium difficulty or in hard difficulty. I'm also going to introduce in this video a little solo variant I created to make Botankhamun more like a new player to the game. So it's a way to make the game even easier than it might otherwise be in easy mode, or maybe make it a little easier than medium would otherwise be. It's a very challenging game, and if you're learning the game, you're going to get just creamed by this bot, I think. And if you want, you could use my little variant to just make the game a little bit easier. And as you're learning the game and starting to play against the bot, if you want, you can choose to use my variant if you like to give yourself a fighting chance. And as you'll see, the variant doesn't add complexity to the solo game. In fact, it simplifies it somewhat. As you can see, I am going to be playing in easy mode today, and this 3 bot producers is related to my variant, which I'll talk about more when I get there. Variant might be too much of a word to describe this because it's very simple. For now, let me bring up the game. I'm going to start by talking about the differences if you're playing solo mode as opposed to playing a normal multiplayer game of Tekhenu. Now, in general, you are playing a two-player game against Botankhamun. That's the name that David Turczi and Nick Shaw have given the bot, the developers of the solo mode. The bot is going to use all of its buildings and statues and pillars and its population and happiness markers. It's going to use its score marker and its Maat marker for turn order purposes. So you need to have a whole set of playing pieces for a second player to represent the bot when you're playing solo. However, the bot doesn't use a player board and it has no use for its production markers. While you start the game, as usual, with your population of 5 and happiness of 2, the bot starts the game with a little bit of a leg up. It starts with a population of 7 and a happiness of 4. So in today's game, the bot is going to be playing with the pink pieces. And as you can see, he starts with a little more population and a little more happiness than I do. As usual, you start the game with a gold and a scribe. You draw 2 decrees, you discard 1 in the normal fashion. But Botankhamun doesn't get a starting decree. He doesn't get any starting cards. He doesn't get any starting resources. In fact, for that matter, the bot doesn't use resources or faith tokens at all during this game. So he never has to pay for an action. He never collects resources. He never produces resources. The only item that Botankhamun ever collects is scribes. And he just collects them. He never spends them. As you'll see, when I get to endgame scoring, the bot's going to score 1 point for every 2 scribes that he has in his possession at the end of the game. When Botankhamun is first in turn order, and in fact, he starts first in turn order at the beginning of the game, when you're choosing destiny cards, Botankhamun will either choose the first destiny card, the lowest one, the scribe, meaning the Ankh value of 0, or he will choose the next highest Ankh value 1, the destiny card that produces 1 gold. He never evaluates that card. He never collects a scribe or a gold by choosing a destiny card. But when he's first in turn order, he's going to randomly choose one of those cards and give you 1 less card to choose from. So while he does earn scribes during the game, he won't earn them via a destiny card. Botankhamun starts the game with 1 statue already built. It's a statue honoring the god that's represented by the token in the Horus bonus area that corresponds to the die value of 1. So if we go look up in the Horus bonus area in the top left-hand corner, you can see that my program has randomly assigned tokens to these various dice, and the god at position 1 is Hathor. And therefore, as you can see, the bot starts the game with a statue honoring Hathor. That way, if he or I ever perform a Hathor God Action, he's automatically going to earn a bonus. He is not going to earn this bonus. If the god that he's getting the bonus for corresponds to die value 1 or die value 2, then he's going to earn a scribe. If, on the other hand, he earns a bonus honoring a god at position 3 or position 4 up here, in this case Osiris or Horus, if he happened to have a statue built in those areas, he would gain a victory point. And finally, if he was ever getting a bonus from honoring a god in positions 5 or 6, he'd get both of those bonuses. He'd get a scribe and a victory point. You always ignore these bonuses for purposes of the bot. You use them for yourself if you build a statue honoring a god, but the bot is always going to get either a bonus of a scribe, a victory point, or both. The game comes with 10 solo action tiles that you shuffle and arrange in the shape of a pyramid, just like you see right here. 6 of these tiles represent the 6 god actions in the game. So as you can see, here's Bastet, here's Thoth, here's Osiris, here's Horus, here's Hathor, and here's Ra. And the other 4 tiles depict resources in a different order on each tile. So here, there's a tile that depicts granite, then limestone, then bread, and then papyrus. This one up here is the same, except the pairs are reversed. This one shows limestone, then granite, papyrus, then bread. And then similarly, there's a tile that shows papyrus, bread, limestone, granite. And the final tile, it reverses those pairs, so it's bread, papyrus, and then granite, and then limestone. And the order of the way those resources are depicted on the tile controls how the bot takes its turn, which I'll get into in more detail in a moment. So what you see right here is the setup for an easy game. But if you want to play the game at medium difficulty, you also start Botankhamun off with a building on the 5 bread space down here in Osiris, and also on the 5 granite space over here. In addition, you randomly draw a tile from the tile stack, and the bot places that tile on one of its pillars on the center spot of the temple complex, covering this gold. Furthermore, if you want to play the game at hard difficulty, if you're an expert at this game and you really want to challenge, it still gets the 2 buildings in the Osiris area. It still gets the extra pillar in the center of the temple complex. It also starts the game with a second statue in honor of the god in position 4. So in this case, if I were playing hard today, there would be a statue in the Horus area. So, as I said, you draw 2 decrees for yourself the way you normally would. You pick one to keep, you pick one to discard. So for today's game, I got a decree that says score 3 victory points per statue you built to honor the god, a god or the people. And in this case, pay 2 gold to score one of your decrees a second time. And I'm laughing because one of the players in my 2-player sample playthrough got that decree as well. And it can be extremely powerful if you have a great decree to go along with it. So I guess for today's game, I am going to hang on to that decree, and I'm going to get rid of this first one. Now, when you're drawing starting cards for yourself, remember the bot doesn't choose any starting cards. It doesn't start with any resources or anything else. It doesn't even start with a scribe for that matter. For yourself, you'd randomly draw 3 starting cards, and you pick 2 of them to start the game with, the way you normally would. The rules say that if you want an additional challenge, you can draw only 2 starting cards and just use those 2. You might as well draw 3 and at least have some choice. So today I got a card that says draw 2 blessings, keep 1, shuffle the other back into the deck. This one allows me to perform an Osiris God Action. And this one lets me draw 2 technology cards from the top of the deck, keep 1, discard the other. So I'm just going to choose this one and this one. And now, as usual, we draw destiny cards. As you see, because the bot always goes first at the beginning of the game, it drew first, and it randomly chose between this one and that one, and it decided to pick the first one. So I'm going to take the second one, gain 1 gold. I'm just going to evaluate everything I started with. So I get a gold. I draw 2 techs, I don't care, I'll just get rid of that. And I get to build an Osiris in a building in row 5, and I'll just build one there. So let's ignore this message for the time being. I'm going to kind of get it off the screen for now. If you want to play using the solo variant that I'm going to be talking about today, then take 3 production markers with a non-player color and just set them next to your player board, or just use any 3 tokens. If you want an easier game, you can start with more of those tokens. If you want a harder game, but still use my variant, you could start maybe with 1 or 2 of those tokens. And you'll see how they're used in a moment. So how do turns get taken? Well, you take your turn in the normal fashion. When it's the bot's turn, the progress marker that comes with the game is going to be placed on the solo action tile in the pyramid, and that's going to dictate how the bot takes its turn, what kind of action it's going to perform, and what die it's going to choose. In round 1 of the game, you always know what the bot's first turn is going to be, because he always takes the turn represented by the tile in the bottom left corner of the pyramid. So at the beginning of the game, you could put the progress marker right on that tile, because you know that's what the bot is going to do in turn 1. In the second, third, and fourth turns following the beginning of the game or any Maat phase during the game, the bot is going to flip that Deben coin that comes with the game, and if it's heads, you're going to move the progress tile up and to the right. So if we flip that coin and it came up heads, we move the progress tile in the second turn of the game from this tile up to Osiris. On the other hand, if you flip that Deben coin and it comes up tails, you simply move the progress marker to the right. So if it was the second turn of the game, if we flip tails, we'd move the progress marker from this tile over to this tile. So you're either moving up and to the right or immediately to the right. And then you'll do that again for the third turn. So if we were here, we might potentially go up there for the third turn or here. Eventually, when you get to the next Maat phase, we shuffle all of these solo tiles and we reconstruct the pyramid and reset the progress marker back onto the bottom leftmost tile. I'll explain how the bot performs each of its different actions as we encounter them in today's playthrough. But in general, just like you, the bot's always going to draft 1 die, and then he's going to perform the God action that corresponds to the section where he took that die from. Unlike you, the bot's never going to produce resources, as I mentioned earlier. And if the bot ever takes an action at one of the 5 locations containing one of the preset gold resources, for example, if he ever builds a building in Osiris Row 2, or ever builds a statue honoring the people here or in the temple complex, you simply take that preset gold resource and discard it, returning it to the supply. Of course, the bot doesn't collect gold, so he ignores it, but he simply deprives you of the chance to get that gold. So let's get the game underway, and let me bring this message back onto the screen. So my solo variant is very simple. Prior to flipping the Deben coin, you can spend one of your bot producers if you want. You still flip the Deben coin. You still move the progress marker the way you normally would, and you still choose the die the way you normally would for the bot. But what you don't do is actually resolve the bot's God action that turn, if you choose to use one of these bot producers. This kind of simulates the bot taking a produce resources action the way you might, maybe 3 times over the course of the game. So my variant is that simple. Like I said, if you don't want to use the variant, if you just want to follow the normal rules of the game, completely ignore this. So how does the bot determine what die to choose? Well, if the progress marker is sitting on a God action, so if it's sitting on Osiris or Hathor, Ra, or Horus, Thoth, or Bastet, if it's sitting on any one of those tiles, then the bot is simply going to take the highest pure or tainted die in that section of the board. So if this tile right now were, say, Hathor, then the bot would choose this die of value 6 from the Hathor God section. If, on the other hand, it was if the Ra tile was here in the bottom left corner, then in this case, the bot would choose this gray 1. Remember, just like you, it ignores all forbidden dice. If there's a tie between two or more dice in the section, so for example, if the bot was going to perform a Horus God action, but there was a yellow 6 and a brown 6 to choose from, then the bot simply chooses randomly. If ever the bot can't draft a die because there aren't any pure or tainted dice available in the applicable God section, it simply tries the next God section, moving in a counterclockwise direction. So for example, in this case, if this yellow 3 weren't here and the progress marker was sitting on the Osiris God Action tile, well, the bot doesn't have a die to choose from because there's nothing sitting in Osiris. So we move counterclockwise. The bot would take a Thoth action instead. In this example, it would take this gray 4 because it was the highest valued die in the Thoth action area. If, on the other hand, the progress marker is sitting on one of these resource tiles, you choose a die a little bit differently. In this case, the bot takes the highest value pure or tainted die on the board that is the color of the first resource depicted on that tile. So in this case, the only pure or tainted black die it could choose is this one in the Bastet God Action. So we know that the first turn of the game, the bot is going to take a Bastet action with that black die of value 2. If for any reason there's a tie, the bot is always going to prefer a die in a section where it has a statue. So for example, if the resource tile in the bottom left-hand corner showed bread in the first position, then the bot would be looking for the highest valued brown die on the board. And if there was a brown 2 over here, and this brown 2 was over here, the bot would prefer to use the die that's in the God section where it has a statue. So in that case, it would take this brown 2 and ignore any other brown 2 on the board. If there's still a tie, then the bot takes the die in the section with the highest numbered Horus bonus. So for example, if the bot also had a statue honoring Horus, and there was a brown 2 here and a brown 2 here, well, they both have statues honoring a god, we'd see that Hathor is associated with a value 1 and Horus is associated with value 4, so in that case it would take the brown 2 from the Horus God section. If there are no dice on the board of the color that the bot is looking for example, if there were no black dice on the board, then you simply try the next resource depicted on the tile. In this case, if there weren't any black dice available, then the bot would look for the highest valued white die anywhere on the board, draft that die, and take the God action associated with that section. It's probably never going to happen, but if the board consists entirely of pure and tainted gray dice, and no dice of any other color that the bot can choose from, then it's simply going to choose the highest value gray die on the board, and you're going to follow the rules that you otherwise would to break ties. But it's highly unlikely that there's only going to be gray dice on the board for the bot to choose from in the event that its progress marker is sitting on one of these resource tiles. So as I said, once the bot has chosen a die, it takes the God action corresponding to the section where it took the die from. So the bot in our example is going to start by looking for the largest pure or tainted black die on the board because the first resource depicted on this tile is black. The highest valued black die is this black 2. This is forbidden, so we can ignore that black die. The bot is going to draft this black 2 and perform a Bastet God action with it. And he's going to gain 2 happiness. And because he drafted a 2, he's going to gain 2 scribes. The only difference is, if the bot ever has to increase its happiness, and its happiness marker is in the same space as its population marker, you would increase its population instead. In our example, if this happened to be a black 6, it would increase its happiness by 3 up to 7 to meet the population marker. Then it still has 3 more pips. So it moves its population up 1 step. Then it moves its happiness up 1 more step. And for the last pip, it would move its population marker up 1 more step. The bot completely ignores all bonuses on the population track. So if it ever gets its happiness up to space 16, it's not going to collect a gold. It's not going to collect a scribe if it gets up to space 19, and it's not going to perform a bonus action if it gets all the way up to space 21. I am going to let the bot take its action. It's going to take this black 2, and it's going to increase its population by 2 up to 6. And its turn is now over. Now I have to take a turn, and I'll just grab this gray 5 in Bastet and get my happiness up as well. So let's move on now to the second turn of the game. There's a 50% chance that the bot is going to perform an Osiris God Action, and a 50% chance that the bot is going to perform a Hathor God Action. Remember, we're going to flip the Deben coin, and if it's heads, we're going to move the progress marker to the Osiris tile. If it comes up tails, we're going to move the progress marker to the right to the Hathor tile. So we know the bot is either going to draft this yellow 3 in Osiris, or it's going to draft this gray 6 in Hathor. Let's let it proceed. And as you can see, we came up heads. So we're going to move the progress marker to Osiris. The bot's going to draft this yellow 3. It's going to build a building in the 3rd row of Osiris using a 3, the way it normally would, the way you normally would. But which column is going to place the building in? Well, it's going to place it in the column corresponding to the color of the die that it chose. So in this case, because it chose a yellow 3, then it's going to erect a building in row 3 papyrus. If you happen to be using a gray die, then it's going to choose the column that contains the fewest number of buildings. Not statues, just the fewest number of buildings. And if there's a tie between columns with the fewest number of buildings, it uses the leftmost column. That's where it places its building. Furthermore, if there's a building already in the space that the bot wants to use, then it would simply shift to the right and try the next column. If that was occupied, it would shift to the right again and try that column, and so forth. If this happened to be a white 3, and it started here, and if there was a building in the limestone space, and it tried granite, and there was a building in the granite space, well, you'd continue moving right and wrap around, and next you would try the papyrus space, and finally you would try the bread space. If, on the other hand, the entire row was filled with buildings, which is unlikely, but it might happen, then you simply move up to the next higher row. Start with the color corresponding to the die, the same rule you follow based on the die that the bot chose, and continue wrapping around to the right until you find an empty space where it can erect a building. If there's no building space there, you move up to row 1. If there's no building space there, you move up and wrap around to row 6. So you always shift right or shift up until you find an empty space for the bot to erect its building. I'm going to unpause now, and as I said, we know the bot is going to build a building in row 3, papyrus, because it's drafting this yellow 3. Well, we drafted a tainted die last turn, so this turn I'm going to draft a pure die. I do want to try to keep my scale balanced. I don't know, I'll just take this Thoth value 3 die. And where am I? I'm in the red section. This one allows me to produce resources twice when producing resources, so I'll take that. This one says that I always resolve the ability on a tile when I'm performing a raw God action. So I'll just grab that. Moving on to round 3. Now there's going to be a rotation, as there normally would, on every even round. So the obelisks are going to rotate, the dice are going to get repositioned. You're going to draw 2 dice from the bag for each of the 2 shaded areas, roll those dice, and then reposition all the dice so that they're in the appropriate position, pure, tainted, or forbidden. Of course, my program is going to do that for me, so it'll all happen instantaneously. And now we're in round 3. What's the bot going to do this turn? If it flips the Debon coin and comes up heads, it's going to move up here and it's going to take the highest yellow die on the board, which is this yellow Horus 5. If, on the other hand, it flips the Debon coin and comes up tails, it's going to move the progress marker to the right and find the highest white die. In that case, it's this white 5 in the raw action area. So I will let the bot do its thing. It flipped, it came up heads, so it's going to take the highest yellow die from the Horus God area. And how is it going to use that yellow 5? If it can, it first wants to build a statue honoring the appropriate god. The god Thoth with a statue, so it would build a statue down here in the Thoth God area. If, however, there was already a statue there, when you're playing a 2-player game, there's only 1 statue allowed per section around the obelisk, then in that case, it's going to look to build a statue in the Osiris action area. If both spaces are empty, as they are here, it's going to choose the statue space that results in the bot having a majority in more columns. So if it built a statue here, it would result in the bot gaining 1 majority in column 2. It already has the majority in column 1. If it built a statue here, it would gain majority in both columns 3 and 4. So in this example, if it couldn't build a statue honoring Thoth, it's going to put a statue in this space, remove the gold, and return it to the supply. If both of these statue spaces are occupied, it's going to turn its attention to the statue spaces in the temple complex. In that case, it's going to choose the statue that's aligned with more of its pillars. If the bot had already erected a pillar here and a pillar here, then it would build a statue here. On the other hand, if there was a pillar here and a pillar here, in that case, those are both aligned with this statue space, so it would build a statue to the south of the temple complex. If the bot had already erected a pillar here and here and here, and therefore there was a tie between statue spaces, then it simply chooses randomly. Again, you remove the gold resource and return it to the supply. If, in the rare case, it can't build a statue honoring a god, and both spaces here are filled, and both statue spaces here are filled, in that case, it doesn't build a statue, but it does score 3 victory points. So what's the bot going to do? Well, it's going to take this yellow 5, and it's going to honor the god Thoth and build a statue down here in the south of the obelisk. Okay, it's my turn. Well, I know I have this technology that lets me produce when I use a tainted die, and I also have this blessing that lets me produce twice, so I can't pass up the chance to use this brown 2 in Hathor. Use the technology to pay 1 scribe and produce resources. Use the blessing to produce resources twice. So I've just generated 4 bread, and now use that 4 bread to choose the space around the temple complex to erect a building. So I'll put it in the prime space up here and collect 1 of everything. Because I took a Hathor God action, And the bot has a statue in Hathor, and Hathor corresponds to a die of value 1, then the bot's going to earn 1 scribe as a result of my taking that action. And as we can see here, the bot did indeed gain 1 scribe. Moving into round 4. We're either going to flip the Devon coin and come up heads, in which case the bot is going to perform a Bastet God Action using this die of value 6. It would increase its happiness by 1, then its population by 1, then its happiness by 1, then its population by 1, then its happiness by 1, and so forth until it used all 6 pips. Or the Devon coin's going to come up tails, and the bot's going to perform a Thoth God Action instead, in which case it would use this gray 6 and draw 3 cards from the highest section that it could. In this case, I think I will use one of my bot producers to prevent it from using either one of these 6s, because those are very strong actions. I am going to use one of my 3 bot producers. It came up heads, therefore it's going to take the gray 6, but it's not going to perform the action, and its population and its happiness is going to remain where it is. So it's my final turn before the Maat phase. I am looking for a pure die. I think I'll grab this pure brown 3 in Thoth and grab some cards. So again, I'm in the red section. Oh, well, maybe I'll grab this technology that lets me avoid having to worry about paying bread for building upkeep. And I'll take this blessing that allows me to perform a free Bastet or Hathor God Action. Okay, I'll end my turn, and now we'll proceed to the Maat phase. Now, in the Maat phase, the bot, it has a predetermined scale balance that it uses at each one of the Maat phases. For the first Maat phase, we assume that the bot has a scale balance of +3. For the second Maat phase, you assume that the bot had a scale balance of +2. And finally, in the third and fourth Maat phases, you assume that the bot has a scale balance of +1. And that's, again, only used for purposes of determining if you're first in turn order or not. Well, in my case, my balance is -1, so I am going to be first in turn order starting in round 5. If there was a tie, you always assume that the Maat has an Ankh value of 4. So the only way you can defeat it is by having that card, that technology that provides you with a permanent Ankh value of 5. So I'm going first this round. Again, we choose Destiny cards. I get to go first. I will choose the gold, and therefore the bot will take the first Destiny card with a Ankh value of 0, which of course it ignores. Before I take my action, let's take a look at what the bot's going to do when it's his turn. He's going to perform a Horus God Action, but there are no pure or tainted dice in the Horus God section, so he's going to move counterclockwise, and he instead is going to take this brown 5. In the event of a tie, the bot always prefers to take a pure die instead of a tainted die. That's all well and good, but since I have this blessing that lets me perform a free Bastet or Hathor God Action, and there's a 6 up here in Hathor, I'll use that 6 to use my blessing to perform a free Hathor God Action, and I'll build a building down here in the prime spot to the south of the temple complex. Unfortunately, the bot is still going to get another bonus, and it's going to earn a scribe, which is equivalent to a half a point at the end of the game. There's the bot earning a scribe. Now it's the bot's turn. It's going to use that brown die in the Osiris action area, and it is going to build a building here in row 5 in the bread space. My turn. Well, I know I don't have to pay bread for building upkeep, so I'll join the bot and take this black 5, and I will erect a building in Osiris row 5. Oh, let's do it in the granite column. What is Botankhamun going to do now? Well, if Devon comes up heads, it's going to perform a Bastet God Action. There are no dice there, so it's going to move counterclockwise and use that yellow 5 to perform a Hathor God Action. On the other hand, if it comes up tails, it's going to move to the right, and it's going to want to perform a Thoth God Action. It'll take the gray 6. It came up heads. It's taking the yellow 5 in the Hathor God area. So what does it do when it wants to perform a Hathor action? When the bot takes a Hathor action, it chooses a space where it would score the most points from its pillars. Right now, the bot hasn't produced any pillars. In that case, it chooses randomly. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces to choose randomly from. So that's a good reason why you might want to have a D8 on hand. That's the reason why you might want to have a D6, a D8, and a D10 on hand in the event that you have to choose from a lot of different buildings for the bot. In my case, my program is going to take care of that randomly, and it chooses to build a building down here in the southwest corner. It's another rotation phase, and now it's round 7. Well, I just gained a lot of granite, so I'll come up here to Horus and grab this brown 6, and I will build a statue honoring the god of Ra. Moving on to the bot. Well, Botankhamun is either going to take the highest valued white die on the board, which is this white 5 in the raw action area, or it's going to come up tails, move to the right, and it's going to look for the highest valued yellow die on the board, which is either this yellow 4 or this yellow 4. It doesn't have a statue either place, so in that case, it's going to choose randomly. Came up heads. So it's going to take the highest valued white die on the board, which is the white 5 in the raw action area, and it's going to perform a raw action. And guess what? I'm going to get a bonus. So what does it do when it's taking a raw action? Well, it first selects the tile that it normally would based on the value of the die. So in this case, it's a white 5. It's going to take this tile. It always ignores the bonus on the tile. It never has to worry about taking a bonus. The bot never rotates the tile. Instead, it simply places the tile on the temple complex where it's going to score the most points. It's going to score 1 point per building in the same row or column as the tile, and it's going to score 1 point for any adjacent edge, regardless of color. Well, it has two choices. It can either place the tile here and score 2 points because of the 2 buildings, or it could place the tile here and score 3 points because there's 2 adjacent edges and one of its buildings is in that same row. Therefore, it's going to place the tile in this space in the corner. It ignores the +1 bonus for adjacent edges, and it's therefore only going to score 3 points plus 3 points for the tile for a total of 6 points. So it takes the first tile, it places it in the bottom left corner, puts one of its pillars on top, And that ends its turn. And let me just make sure I got my scribe. I did. Okay, it's my turn. I'm looking for a pure die to keep my scale balanced. I don't have granite, so do I have limestone? I have 2 limestone and 2 gold. I can't afford this tile. And in fact, the shading of the tile matches the shading of Ra. So this is a perfect time to do this. I'm going to perform a Ra God action. Of course, I'm going to get the bonus for my statue because we're playing a 2-player game. I'm taking this tile, and of course I'm going to put it in the center spot. And I'm going to gain 3 population. Okay, well, the bot is either going to perform a Ra God action using the yellow 4, or it's going to look for the highest valued brown die on the board, which is this brown 1, tainted 1 in Osiris. The score is pretty close. I think I might want to prevent the bot from scoring more points, so I am going to use another bot producer just in case it wants to perform a Ra God action. Well, it flipped, it came up heads, so it's going to take that yellow 4, and it would have otherwise performed another Ra God action, but I prevented that action from taking place. Of course, I denied myself the bonus of 1 scribe, but at least I prevented the bot from scoring, well, maybe 5 or 6 points. Okay, it looks like I'm retaining first position in turn order. Now we have to choose destiny cards again. Again, I will take the 1 gold destiny card, and the bot's going to take the 1 scribe destiny card. It completes the rest of the rotation phase, and now we're at the top of round 9. But let's take a break so we can review how the bot performs scoring. So in the scoring phase, the bot calculates the Osiris majorities the way it normally would. So in this case, the bot has a majority in column 1 and column 2, and it'll score 6 points. And I have the majority in column 4, so I'm going to score 3 points. It then scores the temple complex in the usual fashion. I score 2 points for my 2 buildings, and the bot scores 1 point for its single building. Next, we score pillars in the normal fashion. I score for my pillar 2 points, and the bot scores 1 point for its pillar. I get 2 points because I have 2 buildings of my color opposite my pillar, and the bot scores 1 point because it has 1 building in the same row or column as its pillar. Next, we score for the number of statues built. I built 1 statue, and the bot has built 2 statues. So I score 1 point, and the bot scores 3 points. Finally, we score based on the position of our happiness markers. Both of our happiness markers are below the 1 period mark, so nobody is going to score any points for happiness marker position. If the bot had performed any Thoth God actions, it would now score 2 points for any blessing in its possession, and then it would discard all of its blessings. Next, it would score 2 points for any technology cards it had in its possession, but it would hold on to those technology cards so it could score them again at the end of round 16. The bot hasn't taken any Thoth God actions yet, so it doesn't have any blessings or technologies to score at this point. Obviously, the bot doesn't have to pay bread for building upkeep, and I don't have to pay bread for building upkeep because of the technology card that I drew earlier. So building upkeep is a piece of cake. And now we're moving into the top of round 9. I think I'll grab this tainted gray 5 and increase my happiness by 5. We know what the bot's going to do. It's going to perform a raw God action. We know what the bot's going to do. It's going to perform a raw God action using the pure yellow 4. I think I'll use my last bot producer to prevent it from scoring what will probably be 5 or 6 points for erecting a pillar. Again, I'm going to deny myself a scribe. Takes the yellow 4, but doesn't perform an action. It's now round 10. Well, I have some bread. I might as well take this 1 in the Hathor action area. I'm not going to produce 1 resource, so I'm going to skip that. And I'll put the building here in the bottom right corner because I only have 2 bread. Well, actually, I had a gold, so I suppose I could have used the 3 bread space. All right, what's the bot going to do? Well, it's either going to flip heads, move up here, and look for the highest valued yellow die on the board. Well, there are no yellow pure or tainted dice on the board, so it's going to look now for the highest valued brown die on the board. That would be this pure brown 4 in the Thoth action area. Alternatively, if it comes up tails, it's going to move the progress marker to the right and perform a Thoth God action using the highest valued die in Thoth, which is this gray 6. So it's either going to take this brown 4 or gray 6, but either way, it's going to perform a Thoth God action. Now, this is the first Thoth God action the bot is ever going to take. So how does it perform that action? Well, first, it's going to choose the number of cards it normally would choose based on the value of the die. So if it ends up taking this brown 4, it's going to want to draw 2 cards. If it ends up taking this gray 6, it's going to want to draw 3 cards. It always takes cards from its highest available section. In this case, it's going to take cards from the red section. Its preference is to take decrees, so it will take the leftmost decree in the highest section it can. And then if there's only 1 decree remaining, it'll take that decree. Next, if there are no decrees available, it'll take the leftmost technology card in that area, or take the last remaining technology card in that area. Finally, if there are no technology cards, it takes the leftmost blessing in that area, or if there's only 1 blessing remaining, it takes that last blessing. In this case, well, let's find out how many cards it's going to take first. Okay, it came up heads. It's going to use this brown 4. Therefore, it's going to take 2 cards from the red section, and it will take the leftmost technology, and for its second card, it'll take the second technology card in that section. Remember, it's going to score 2 points for each of those technologies at the next scoring phase. It's my turn, and I have to remember I have this decree that lets me score another decree twice. Unfortunately, I don't have another decree, so I better increase my happiness. So I'm going to take this white 2, and I'll use a scribe to increase that to a value of 4. I still have another scribe. I'll use my last scribe to increase that to 6 and increase my happiness by 6 and get myself up into the blue section of the population track. The bot is either going to flip heads and look for the highest valued black die on the board. That would be this black pure 4 in raw. Remember, it always prefers pure dice over tainted dice, so it'll take the raw black 4 over the Osiris black 4. Alternatively, if it comes up tails, it's going to go for Osiris and take this brown 6 and build a building in the 6th row. came up tails, it's going to take the brown 6, and because it's brown, it's going to build a building in the bread space of row 6. Okay, it's my turn. So I'm looking for another decree. I don't have any papyrus, and I don't have any gold. I could take this die of value 1 from Thoth and look for a single decree. What would I take? 3 points per technology. Well, that's a great card. The only problem with that is that it shares the same symbol as this card. So I wouldn't be able to use this card to score this other technology card twice. On the other hand, it's not a bad card. It would score 9 points where I stand right now, and there are a few more rounds left in the game. Maybe I'd be able to grab some more technology cards. On the other hand, I see this card over here that lets me gain 3 gold when I produce resources. Since it's only round 12 right now, I think I'm going to grab that card. So I'm going to take this die of value 1 and take this 3 gold card and plan to produce resources in my next turn. It's the bot's turn. It's either going to look for the highest valued white die on the board, which would be this white 5 in the Thoth action area, or it's going to flip tails and it's going to perform a Horus action using this gray 2. It came up heads. It's going to take the white 5 in the Thoth action area, and it's going to draw 3 cards from the highest section that it can, which would be red. Therefore, it's going to draw both technology cards, worth 2 points each, at the scoring phase in round 16. Then it'll take the leftmost blessing, which will be this card. Rotation phase. Maat phase. Oh, okay, I wasn't even paying attention, but it looks like I did all right there. My Maat balance was 0, and the bot's Maat balance, because it was the third Maat phase, was 1. Therefore, I'm still first in turn order. Once again, I'm going to choose this destiny card that gives me 1 gold, and the bot is going to choose this destiny card. We complete the rotation phase, and we move into the top of round 13. Well, I'm looking to produce resources, and I know I need to return to Thoth, so I guess I'm going to produce resources using this yellow 4 and grab a lot of papyrus. Fortunately, my papyrus production is up to level 4. And yes, I want to use my blessing to gain 3 additional gold. So I gained 4 papyrus and 3 gold. Now I'm in much better position. Botankhamun is going to look for the highest valued white die on the board. That would be this tainted white 4 in Bastet. Gains 4 happiness. Now it's in the green section of the population track. Now that I have some papyrus, I'm going to grab this gray 6 in the Thoth action area. Of course, the bot's going to get a bonus of 1 scribe and 1 victory point. And I guess I'll take this technology card that scores me 3 victory points per technology. That might turn out to be better than the one that allows me to score a decree a second time, as it turns out. But those contain the same hat symbol, so I can only use one of those decrees, and my program will automatically use the one that produces the most points. This one scores victory points equal to 1/2 the total value of your pure dice. Well, since I have a decree now that scores for technology cards, I want to grab this technology. Well, now I have to choose between this decree that scores victory points equal to half the total value of my pure dice rounded up. So far I've taken a pure yellow 4. Or I could take this blessing that allows me to perform an extra action if I have a scribe. Fortunately, I have no scribes. So I think for now I'm just going to grab this decree and hope for the best. It looks to me like the symbol on this decree is a snake, not a cat. So that means I will be able to score potentially at the end of the game. So I'll take that decree. And as you just saw, the bot gained 1 scribe and scored 1 victory point for its Horus bonus. Next, the bot is either going to look for the highest valued yellow die, that would be the yellow 2 in Horus, or it's going to look for the highest valued brown die, that would be the brown 1 in Hathor. Came up heads, it's looking for the highest valued yellow die. It's going to take this yellow 2 in Horus and build a statue honoring the god of Bastet. So that's its 3rd statue. And now the last rotation phase. And now we're into round 15. I think I'll take this brown 3 in Bastet and get my happiness up above the next pyramid mark and also gain 1 gold. As you just saw, the bot got a bonus for its newly built statue in Bastet. Because it corresponds to a die of value 2, it only gains 1 scribe. For its next trick, the bot is either going to perform a Horus God action using that white 3, or it's going to try to perform an Osiris action, but there are no dice in the Osiris action area, so it'll move counterclockwise and use that yellow 4 in Thoth. It came up heads. It's going to go to Horus, use that white 3, and therefore build a statue honoring Osiris. That's its 4th statue so far. And now we're moving into the final round of the game. Well, as I expected, things are not looking too good for me, especially with the bot having built 4 statues. I do have gold at my disposal. Let's see what decrees are up here. Score 2 victory points per statue you built to honor the god, to honor a god or the people, plus 2 victory points per pillar. This one says score 5 victory points per statue you built to honor the people. Well, I think I'll take this yellow 4. Of course, I'm going to give the bot another bonus for taking this Thoth action. I'm going to use 1 of my gold to recycle the cards here and hope for a better decree. Okay, now I've got score 3 victory points per workshop you constructed on Osiris. That's not so hot. This one says score 4 victory points per pyramid your happiness marker is reached. That's much better. So I'm going to take that decree. And then for my second card, I guess I'll grab this technology, because I have the decree that scores 3 points per technology. And that'll be my 5th technology. For its last turn, the bot is either going to look for the highest valued black die, which would be that black 4 in the raw action area, or it's going to come up tails and want to perform a raw action, in which case it will still use the black 4. So either way you cut it, the bot's last action is going to be a raw God action with that black 4. It's going to use the black 4. it's going to place that tile in the space where it scores the most points. If it places here, it'll score 1 point for one edge and 2 points for those two buildings, scoring 3 points. If it places here, it'll score 2 points for the two edges and 2 points for the two buildings. I should mention that if there ever was a tie, the bot's preference is to choose an interior space in the temple complex over a space that's adjacent to one of the edges of the temple complex. However, in this case, we know the bot's going to build that last pillar in the bottom right-hand corner. Game ends. Maat phase. Well, for the Maat phase, I had a balance of -1. Botankhamun had a balance of 1, and therefore its Ankh value of 4 beats my Ankh value of 1. Another 3 points for the bot. Let's see how badly it defeated me. Well, not as bad as I thought. It turned out to be 81 to 71. If I hadn't used my variant, I bet Botankhamun's score would have been closer to 100 or 110 or 115. It looks like I didn't score the decree that scores for another decree. Instead, my program figured out that my best combination of decrees was to use my decree that scored 4 points per happiness pyramid for a total of 12 points, 3 points per technology for a total of 15, and half the value of my pure dice rounded up, which only scored me an additional 4 points for a total of 31 points. During the scoring phase, as you recall, it scores 2 points for every blessing. It scores 2 points for every technology. For endgame scoring purposes, the bot scores 4 points for each of its decrees. The rules say that if you want an increased challenge, you can score 8 victory points per decree. The bot never picked up any decrees, so it didn't score any points for decrees, fortunately. It did have 14 scribes, so it scored 7 points for those. It did score 3 points because it was first in turn order, and that's how we arrived at the final score of 81 to 71, the bot taking this game. Well, I guess I have to go back and practice a little bit. Once my program's all cleaned up, maybe I'll produce another solo video where I get to concentrate a little bit more and perhaps make some better choices. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like or subscribe. Check out some of my other videos and programs that I've written for other games. In the meantime, everybody, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.